السلام عليكم. كيف الأحوال؟ نهار طويل. مين استفاد واستمتع من الملتقى لهلا؟ حزعل منكم إذا ما رفعتوا إيديكم. لا بالعكس. بسرني أنا إنه أكون المحاور بآخر جلسة بالملتقى، وحتكون الجلسة عن المواصلات. اليوم السوق السعودي صار سوق فيه تنافس شديد بالمواصلات بدخول شركة أوبر العالمية اللي تقييمها صار ب 18 مليار دولار، دخول الشركات الإقليمية مثل كريم ومثل موندو تاكسي وإيزي تاكسي وغيرهم. اليوم حنستضيف حعرف عن المحاضرين. حنحكي الجلسة بالإنجليزي لأنه في معنا محاضرين ما بيحكوا عربي، فاللي حابب ياخذ ترجمة موجودة الترجمة ورا. بعرف عن المحاضرين واحد ورا الثاني. بنبتدي بالأخ مدثر الشيخة co-founder and managing director of Kareem, and I will switch to English now. Welcome. Majid Abu Khatir, the general manager of Uber Riyadh, and George Grama, the founder and CEO of Mondo Taxi. Unfortunately, Dr. Mahmoud Foz, the CEO of Easy Taxi Middle East, could not be with us. He's actually going to a live TV interview right now. He was just here, but unfortunately, because we're a little bit late, he had to jet. But I'm hoping that he might be coming afterwards so that he can also meet with you if you're interested to connect with him. So, I'll start out by asking, how many people here have used one of these services? If you'll raise your hand, please. And actually, I'm going to start breaking that down into pieces. How many people here have used Uber? Okay. How about Kareem? Okay. Mondo Taxi? Okay. Great. So we've got about an even split of these companies. I want to ask all of the speakers first to kind of very quickly in one or two sentences introduce their service and let us know what makes you unique. Mudassir, you can take a stab at it.
Assalamu alaikum. So Kareem is basically a car booking service. We work with private cars that are licensed by the government. And we are unique in the sense that we are tailored to the needs of the Middle East. We are made in the Middle East for the Middle East. And this is the market that we cater for in our services.
Hello, my name is Majid Abu Khatir, General Manager of Uber Riyadh. So Uber is pretty much the same thing, the car booking app that you can just click a button and get a car show up in a matter of minutes. It's an on-demand service, and I guess what makes us unique is the fact that we are in over 230 cities around the world. So wherever you are around the world, any major city around the world, you can get a car in just a matter of minutes.
How many cities?
Over 230 at this point.
230 cities. And in the Middle East?
In the Middle East, we're about 6 cities.
6 cities in the Middle East. And sorry, Mudassir, I'll just jump back to you and ask the same question.
12 cities in the Middle East.
12 cities in the Middle East. Excellent.
Hello.
George.
My name is George Grama, and I'm the founder of Mondo Taxi. We're a relatively new player in the taxi market in Saudi Arabia. We're only present in Riyadh, and we work only with white licensed taxis for the same price that you can just flag a taxi down from the street. Yeah. Sorry.
Excellent. And George, your background is actually in the taxi space before. You have built a company elsewhere. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I started off with Start Taxi in Romania, which is still the dominant taxi booking app in Romania. It's present in Bucharest and 4 other cities. And when we went international, we rebranded it as Mondo Taxi, and we're now present in 6 markets around the world.
Excellent. So I want to start off by asking all of you, what is the size of the market? I mean, what is the size of the potential market? You don't need to tell me how big your business is, but how big is the total pie for all of this? First in Saudi Arabia and then maybe regionally. Go ahead.
So based on our estimates, the market in Saudi Arabia is a $3 billion market, and that includes both taxis and what we call limousines. And if you expand that market to the rest of the GCC, that number becomes close to $5 to $6 billion.
So, other estimates?
I won't give another estimate. I think that's pretty much accurate. But the way we look at it, sort of at Uber, is not at the current market what it is. I mean, when you think of, sorry, I'm sort of extending the answer here, but
Perfect.
when
Go
we
ahead.
think of how we size a market, it's not just a taxi or a limousine market. Like in more mature cities around the world, we're talking about people that are becoming entrepreneurs, taking on their own car and entering in the market, making it even bigger at that scale. So where you have public transportation, whether it's metro, taxi, buses, or even people walking, that's also a potential for Uber. When you can get a car in 2 minutes, that might be even more efficient than getting a train, for example, at even the same price. So yes, you can look at the market. For us, we look at the market and say, the taxi, okay, it's about $5 billion, $2 billion, $1 billion, whatever that case may be. But then we look at it and say, how can we sort of add value to the ecosystem and make it grow even more so that people use this service for its reliability, for its transparency, for its safety, and use Uber as their sort of number one go-to app. So
But wait a minute. You're saying people are going to take Uber instead of walking?
in some cities, yes. I mean, one of the big things we see, it might not be applicable here in the GCC, but in other cities where it rains a lot, nobody wants to walk in the rain. So literally, they might walk all the time, but rain is actually a great thing for our app in other cities where it rains a lot. Think of Far East Asia or South Asia where it rains a lot. That's the perfect time to use Uber.
So if you have not seen the rains in Saudi Arabia and what happens when it rains here, you are in for a treat. George, tell us about, what are your expectations of the market size?
Well, for us, we're just addressing the taxi market in Saudi, so we're just looking literally just at the taxis. And we don't like to look at it from the point of view of money. We like to look at it from the point of view of orders, because we're serving orders to those taxi drivers, and we're fulfilling orders from customers. So the customers are the core, metric that we're looking at. So from that point of view, we estimate there's about 300,000 orders every day fulfilled in Riyadh alone. So in Saudi, if you double that, if you go to Jeddah, there's about 600,000 orders every day that we
For
can
taxis?
fulfill. Just for taxis, yes.
600,000 orders for taxis every day.
Yeah, that's our market. That's our daily market that we aim
That's
for.
the whole market.
Yes.
Okay, does anyone want to tell us what they're actually doing? All quiet on the Western Front.
I can tell you we're so eager to recruit more drivers because we have more than enough orders at the moment. So we need more drivers to fulfill our demand. So from that point of view, we're very happy with how we're doing.
Yeah. And just to add to that, we are growing 30-40% every month, and the constraint in the market is not the demand. If you deliver a reliable service that people can depend on and come to trust, the bottleneck is really the supply. If you can find enough drivers of a certain quality, then there's actually no shortage of demand.
And I think it's largely irrelevant, the number that it is now, because I think if you speak to any of us, we might give you a number of, we have this many transactions a day. But if you talk to us in a month from now or 6 months from now, that number is going to completely change. We might grow 10 times between now and 6 months from now. So yeah, it might give you a sense of the business now, but it won't give you a really good overview of not only just the growth, but the size of the market.
So I have a question for you, Majid, in particular, and one that I asked on the food panel earlier. Whenever a global company enters a new market, they have two options: classic consulting, build, or buy. Why did you, as Uber, decide to build in the Middle East as opposed to buying Careem?
I can't really speak about the strategy of HQ, but I mean, the Middle East for us was a priority region. We wanted to come to the Middle East as soon as possible because we saw the potential as Uber. And yeah, we're a global company, but 99% of the people that work at Uber in the region, including in Saudi, we're all Arabs. So we've been here most of our lives, and we know exactly what this region wants and needs. And so, hani zaykum, I was here, I'm originally Palestinian, but we have people that are Libyan, Lebanese, we have Saudi, we have Bahrainis, we have Jordanians on the team. So we're all Arabs, and we're all here sort of working together, but we didn't see the Middle East as any different than any other region. So we've never acquired, and we wanted people to feel the Uber experience, the same exact experience they feel in the US or in Europe or in Asia. And so there's no problem turning on a switch and activating Uber in the Middle East. So there's no reason to buy if we can literally, it's just a switch. That's how we've scaled.
It's not quite a switch, right? If if we talk about this market, this is almost as offline as any market gets, right? You have to go out, you have to get the taxi drivers, you have to vet them, you have to go out and you have to do marketing, manage operations, build software systems, manage cars. It's a very operationally heavy business. But stepping back, I want to understand, all of you operate in multiple markets. What makes Saudi Arabia unique? What are the biggest challenges that you're facing here, or the biggest differences that are unique to Saudi Arabia? Go ahead, George.
Okay. Well, I think for us, when we looked at the market, basically, as I said, the needs of the customer are what drives our business. So we looked at the transportation needs of the customers. We realized there's a lack of transportation systems. So there's no metro, although we know that there's one being built soon. You know, even getting a taxi, you don't have like a central dispatch like you do in most European markets where we operate. You have to go outside into the street, or you have to get the taxi number of a driver and call him personally. We find there's a lot of friction between, you know, wanting a taxi and getting one. So I think fulfilling that need in Saudi Arabia is a challenge, but I think there's also opportunity for us. And there was a need here more than it was in Dubai, in Australia, or anywhere else, really.
Why is the need here larger?
Well, there's a few factors, well-known factors by anyone. Women can't drive, for example. So women can't drive. So
Okay.
they either need a driver or they need to take a taxi. There's a security issue around that as well. So you want to get a taxi driver who's always on record. You know, we know exactly who the taxi driver is. We have a contract with him and everything. You know, there's no feasible transportation system or central transportation system that can satisfy the needs for the whole of Riyadh as well. So I think, you know, also the temperature is very, very hot here. So you don't want to be standing outside in the sun and trying to get a taxi from the street, really.
Go ahead, Musa.
So I think this is where, when we started, you know, we actually felt that this region is different in many ways than what might be seen in Europe or San Francisco. And I think let's start with the basics, right? How do people specify addresses? If you want to tell a driver where you are, you're not going to say you are at 23 Lincoln Avenue, because that simply doesn't exist. So the foremost thing for a driver to reach you is you need to be able to give people a good way to specify addresses. And that is mostly landmark based, right? So when we developed our technology, it was taking that into account and making sure that people are able to use landmarks and give directions relative to those landmarks. So that's just one example. Second example is the need for something like a call center for this market. You know, in this market, not only do customers not always feel completely comfortable dealing with an app, but also the drivers are not as reliable sometimes, right? They get lost, they need help, their language skills may not be the same as the language skills that you have. So there is that bridging that needs to happen. So in our call center, for example, which is 24/7, we do driver service as well as customer service. And small nuance, the driver never gets the phone number of the customer, because that's not the kind of experience that we want to deliver. If the driver has an issue, he calls our call center, he gets driver service, and then we communicate the message to the customer. So there's so many small things like this that you have to get right to make the experience totally tailored for this market. Payment is another big one, right? The credit card penetration in this part of the world is much lower than what you would find in other places. So we have to be a little bit more creative in how to make these services available and collect money for them.
So do you accept cash on delivery or cash on arrival?
So we have built a pretty creative way to allow people to use our services for cash. So we basically have a wallet in our service. So if you want to top up that wallet, we'll send you a driver, and you can give him 1,000 riyals, and the 1,000 riyals will get added to your account, and then you can use those 1,000 riyals for the next weeks, months, whatever the case might be. And we see amazing adoption of that
What kind of
concept.
percentage are we talking about who use such a service?
I think in Saudi, it's in the 15 to 20%.
Okay, interesting. What about you guys? Do you accept cash?
No, Uber has never globally accepted cash. We only deal with cards for various reasons. It's safer, it's more secure. If there's ever a cash transaction that happens and you want to dispute the charge, you can't really do that with cash, but you can do it with cards, basically. So even though we don't offer cash, and I know probably 80% of the e-commerce here is cash on delivery, What we've noticed, actually, it hasn't been a detriment to our growth. Our growth has been phenomenal in the region. Given, you can talk about credit card penetration, but it hasn't slowed down at all. And when we launched, versus in Dubai, for example, almost 15 months ago, and our growth now is much faster than it was before. Same thing with Riyadh and Doha and other cities we
You can't really
operate.
say that it hasn't affected your growth because you're not doing it.
Well-
So you wouldn't be able to quite tell what the impact. If we're talking about 15 to 20% of his customers are using these cash services, you may be missing out on those 15 to 20% of
Possibly.
customers.
It's possible, I'm not going to deny that. But I would say, when we talk about 30, 40% growth, that's great. But we're seeing 100 and 150% growth month over month. You know what I mean? So it's our problem is probably the same problem here. It's about scaling to meet the demand. So we might be missing out on, but we still need to find ways to scale significantly.
George, what about you? Do you guys take cash?
Actually, we only accept cash in Saudi Arabia. We looked at the market, we spoke to the customers and the drivers, and we thought this was the best way to do it. Just accept cash for a while. When we think the market will be ready, we'll allow the card payments as well. In other markets, we allow card payments. So we have experience with that. But it's easier for us, and it's easier for the customers as well.
So this brings me to a specific question to you, Majid, which is, these guys have the flexibility to localize. You are maybe at a disadvantage that you don't have the flexibility to localize. Have you localized at any way for the Saudi market?
Yes, absolutely.
Not
yeah.
you, because, sorry, Majid, because I think that you already have localized,
Yeah, we
and I
have.
would love to hear how you have, definitely.
Yeah.
But I want to understand, Majid, if you have some flexibility to localize as well.
We have tons of flexibility, actually. Our team is constant. So our tech team is basically based in the US, and they're constantly growing, mainly to cater to the international growth. You can talk about the localizations that happen in Saudi Arabia or the region, but think about the localizations that need to be in place for places like India and China as well. All of them present their unique challenges, and so our team in the US is literally, we have a very large international team that deals with all these localizations. Yes, the address system here works on landmarks rather than specific addresses, and navigation is paramount to these drivers. A lot of these drivers want navigation. So we provide that, actually. A lot of now in the region, all drivers, they get navigated to exactly the point of interest rather than an address. It's basically just a Google Maps navigation. That's something we've localized specifically for the Middle East, given the challenges here.
George,
You wanted to mention how you are working on localization.
Yeah, actually, we translated the app in Arabic, obviously, even before starting here. We made it so that, for example, when you order a taxi with Mondo Taxi, you can even give a tip to the driver. So you can say, if it's a very busy time and you can't find one, you can say, I'll give you 5-star, for example, if you come and pick me up. And even that currency is depending on the location of where you're ordering. So if you're ordering in Sweden, for example, it's in Swedish krona. So we've made it so the whole application is adaptable to any market that we go to, but even more so to Saudi because of the Arabic, and the drivers, for example, they all speak Urdu. So we had to make the driver application, like my colleague here said, with navigation as well. They really do need navigation. We allow the customer to not only choose the address where he wants the taxi, but also indicate in a very short message before sending the order, indicate to the driver, where exactly he is. So, for example, in front of McDonald's. So we try to make it as easy as possible for the drivers to locate the customer. Yes.
Interesting. So we talked about women. I think this is an interesting challenge specific to the Saudi market. Women can't drive. What percentage of your user base in Saudi Arabia is coming from women?
So in the case of Kareem, we have in the consumer business, we have a big corporate client base that uses our services in Saudi. And that's a bit more balanced. But on the consumer side, 70 to 80% of the passengers are women.
Wow. George, you're nodding your head like you see the same sorts of numbers.
Yeah, about 70 to 75%.
Majid?
I wouldn't be surprised if that was the number, but the truth of the matter is, when you sign up to Uber, it's a very kind of a quick sign-up process. So all we ask is for your email, phone number, and literally name and credit card information. We don't ask sort of gender-specific questions, just to make the sign-up process very kind of smooth sailing. But anecdotally, if you speak to the drivers themselves that use Uber, they'll probably tell you the same exact percentages.
Okay, interesting. Great. So what do you believe are the reasons why someone would choose one of you versus the other? Let's kind of list them quickly.
At the same time.
Yeah, just throw out your ideas. Customer service is one, right? You got
Pre-scheduled bookings that Kareem only offers.
pre-scheduled bookings, yes.
Call
please.
center.
Shameless plug. Pre-scheduled bookings. What else?
I think user experience is an important one. The fact that you can open up the cars, open up the app and see the cars before you even book, know exactly where they are around you is a huge advantage. Scale, the fact that you can use Uber once you sign up anywhere, you can use it anywhere around the world. So
Excellent.
Scalability, network effects.
Global availability and
Yeah.
local availability, right?
Yeah, but even reliability. I mean, one of the things that we strive to achieve anywhere around the world is the fact that you can get a car anywhere within 5 minutes. And so in Riyadh, our average time is about, I would say about 8 minutes now. But as we scale, it'll be around 3, 4, 5 minutes.
Does anyone have all three of these apps installed? You do. Can you run us a little experiment and see how much time it would take us to get a cab from each of them right now? Or let's actually, if we could. I'm going to actually turn this back to the audience again, or maybe we'll take a volunteer to do one for each. Okay, Mondo Taxi, who's got Mondo Taxi? Mondo, okay, you're responsible. Look it up. Who has Uber? Go, okay, someone else has got to try that. Okay, you look it up, Uber. And Kareem. Who's got Kareem? Yeah, that's you. Okay, do I have an answer for the first? Mondo Taxi? Or anyone have an answer? 6 minutes for Uber. Mondo or Kareem? 4 minutes if it's a black car. Okay. 12 minutes for? Mondo, 12 minutes. Okay. We're still waiting for Kareem. 2 minutes for Kareem. We have a winner. Okay, I'm sure this is, maybe does not reflect your availability everywhere, so we know that this is just a sample, but I think it's an interesting way to look at things. Okay, good.
And Umar did not tee us up for this, by the way. So
I did not tee them up for this one. I have not teed them up for any of these questions, although they asked for them. Okay. Payments, we said, is one of the things that someone could choose one of you over the other. So far I've got payment, user experience, pre-scheduled booking, customer service, availability globally and locally. Any other things that you guys would think of?
I think regional footprint as well. We have the largest regional footprint of any of the players, right?
Okay.
We have 5 cities in Saudi, 12 cities in the Middle East. So if you're a Middle East trotter, then Kareem is your friend.
Okay.
I think operations is very important as well. Like the training they give to the drivers has to be very, very specific, and you have to have very good quality controls.
Okay, great. So your experience with the drivers, I think that's great. I've had some bad experiences.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to turn this back to the audience again. We're going to see what is the most important of these for you. Has anyone here used a service, one of these services, and then decided to switch to another one because they had a bad experience? Raise your hand. Okay, not that many. So we'll start with customer service. Raise your hand if customer service is going to be the thing for you. Okay, got maybe 5 or 6 people. Pre-scheduled bookings. I really need to pre-schedule my booking or else I'm not going to use this service. Okay, we've got 10 or so people. User experience. This app is so easy to use. I got my cab very, very quickly. Okay, 1, 2, okay. This one is the most so far, 20. Payment. You know, my credit card, I don't want to use my credit card. I would rather pay with cash. Or I want a flexible payment option. Raise your hands. Flexible payment options.
Other side as well.
Okay, that one's maybe 15. Drivers. The driver was really great, and I'm going to choose my service because of the driver. Okay, so last one, availability. Local availability. I get a cab really quickly. Okay, regional availability. I get a cab in every city that I go to. Not so many. Global availability. I'm in New York and Paris all the time, and I want to make sure I can use the same service everywhere. Okay, so, and the audience says, most important things are user experience and payments. Seems those two are by far the most important, and pre-scheduled bookings seems to be quite an important one as well. Great. Where are my questions? So I wanted to see, I can turn this to the audience and see if you guys have some questions at this point. Any questions from the audience? We've got one question over here. Oh, we've got lots of questions.
Hello. Can the speaker share with us the cancellation, the daily cancellation rate for the orders?
Great question. What kind of cancellation rates do you get?
I think, so I don't have the exact number with me, but for us, for pre-scheduled bookings, it's actually very low. And for now bookings, it's a function of how far the car is. And if I had to just come up with a number, it's probably close to 10%.
Can I add one element to this question, which is, what's the difference between cancellation rates on cash versus credit card? Because, I mean, we see this in e-commerce transactions, significantly higher cancellations on cash on delivery. Do you find the same?
So ours is not cash on delivery,
so
right?
you're a
So we
wallet.
actually, we are protected from that. I think Mondo is probably the one that.
Mondo?
They're pretty much the same, to be honest, because the customer, you know, who uses a credit card, he's put in the credit card details, and when he orders, he knows he's going to pay by credit card. So, you know, obviously we don't take any money from the credit card before the ride is over. In other markets, in Saudi, it's just cash. So for us, the cancellation rate goes up as we increase the marketing spend, because people download the app and they try it. So they try to see if, you know, can I really get a taxi this way? Is it really that easy? So every time we increase the marketing budget, the cancellation rates go up, and then after a week, you know, or so, they go down again. So I would say about 15% on cancellations.
Okay. There's more questions from the audience. Gentleman up front, and then gentleman in back raising his hand. Yes.
Walid Al-Bashir, Stationery Incorporated. My question to the panelist is that, what about the taxi services? Most of you working on the limousine industry. What about the taxi services, and how significant is the market requirement for offering these services to normal taxis?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
Okay, taxi, the normal taxi, not the
Yes.
limousine service. Is there any offering for the normal taxi to use through the application? And how significant this requirement are there for the market?
So I believe that that's actually the key difference between these guys, right? Which is that George and Mondo are taxi-based, and the other guys are private cars. So I don't know that we can quite compare the two in terms of the size.
But I think it's a fair question, if I just can add some comment here. So when Uber first launched, you're right, it did launch based on a sort of a limo private car service in San Francisco. But in a lot of cities around the world, we do offer taxi. So there's nothing against that. Think of Uber as sort of a platform that different transportation providers, whether it's taxis, I think we've done campaigns with like helicopters too. You can order a helicopter through an Uber car. When it was the Cannes Film Festival, you can order an Uber jet. You can literally get a private jet using just a touch of a button. So there's nothing against working with one type of car or another, but it's just about, now we're just starting in Riyadh, and the potential on the private car side is just so huge, but we're always evaluating sort of options and going forward. So there's nothing against that.
So, and I'll also add to that, how is the response from the taxis to your services? Are you replacing them? Are you disrupting them? I know Uber has been in some heat in recent times because of this situation, heat with regulators globally about this. How do you see your relationship with the taxis and with the regulators, transportation regulators?
I can talk about the taxis. To be honest, it's kind of like we haven't seen much of a relationship between them, mainly because we're growing so fast, but we're just scratching the surface. I know a lot of companies say that, but there's just the potential is so huge. And my colleague here was talking about 600,000 taxi trips in the kingdom every day. Was that right? Every day. And so Uber is just scratching the surface on the private car side. So it's not really much of an issue between us and taxis. Now, when it comes for the rest of the world, there's specific. I think they know their markets more than I do, so I can't really comment on that. But here, I think it's been.
Do you need to get
Complimentary.
licensed in Saudi Arabia in any way? No, you don't need to get licensed.
If you
Well, yeah. Sorry. Go
no,
ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Well, Saudi Arabia is a very specific market, so you need to understand sort of. We've been hired here because we understand this market. So we have our taxi technology license. It is licensed, and we work with licensed operators as well. So we understand the system here and how it operates, and that's what adds to Uber's sort of safety, reliability, transparency, so that when you use Uber, you sort of know what you're getting into, and it's not sort of some sketchy service.
We as an application don't need to be licensed, but all the taxis that we work with, they have to be licensed and they have to have like all the paperwork with them. So basically, when we sign up a driver to our network, and by the way, we only take about 10 to 15% of the drivers who want to work with us, so we're very strict on this. We make sure that all their documents are valid. They're allowed to be on that taxi, and they provide a very good service. So yeah, from that point of view, we only work with licensed cars, and they should only, practice their tariff, the standard tariff, nothing else.
Okay. More questions from the audience. The gentleman over there.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام.
المقصود بالسيارات الخاصة هل هم متعاونين مع أشخاص وسياراتهم ملكيتهم الخاصة؟
Please بس قرب على الميكروفون مش
Yeah.
قادرين نسمعك.
المقصود بالسيارات الخاصة اللي بيستخدموها الشركتين غير موندو عنده سيارات التاكسي. الشركتين الثانية بتستخدم سيارات خاصة، هل سيارات مملوكة لها بشعارها أو بيتعاملوا مع سواقين؟ يعني ممكن يضيفوا مثلا أنا أسير واحد من
So do you use, if I heard and understood the question correctly, do you deal with cars, drivers who have their own cars? You supply the cars yourselves. Can someone become a driver with you? Yes? Roughly speaking.
So in the case of Kareem, you need to be a licensed driver with a licensed card that is allowed for this type of service to be able to work with us.
Yeah.
You don't own the cars.
No. So Uber is just technology company. We don't employ drivers or buy cars, but we do work with, again, same thing, licensed transportation providers.
It's the same with us. We only work with licensed taxis. I think I've already just said that. Yeah.
Yes. Got a question in the front.
Since the gas here in Gulf country is very cheap, and also it's cheap for the customer to own the car than to be spending his life going around with taxi, is it profitable, the taxi program here in Gulf countries?
Can I answer that? Well, to be honest, we don't want to create, a new market. These taxis, there's 20,000 taxis in Riyadh alone. These taxis are on the street every day. They take 10 to 15 orders every day at least. So, the market is there. People are already using these taxis. All we're doing is making it a lot easier for the drivers and the customers to meet. So we're not creating a new market. The market is already there for this transportation need.
So, yeah, go ahead.
In fact, just to add to this point, given that gas is so cheap here, it actually has led to an increase in traffic on the roads, right? Riyadh is actually quite busy. So, and you spend more time stuck in traffic, you spend more time looking for parking. So some of these things are actually a reason to consider using services like Kareem, where you can be more productive while you're waiting in traffic, and you don't have to worry about parking when you get somewhere.
Is it good for the drivers? Do they make more money with you than they were by themselves? Do you have numbers that you can share with us, as in, I was a driver before I made X, now I'm a driver after and I make Y?
Absolutely. The drivers are making 20 to 30% more than what they were making before. And it's not that they're making more money because they're utilized a lot more. It's also there's a lot more certainty to their income. The driver life was not only, he's basically out on the street, he's living day to day, right? He doesn't know if he's going to get enough orders the next day. Whereas with Kareem coming into the picture, and we have a loyalty program for the drivers where if a driver performs well, he gets good ratings, meaning he gives good service, we actually promote him up in our tier and he gets more business from us. And as he moves up the tier, we start implicitly guaranteeing a certain income for the driver. So not only is the driver making more money, he's actually making a more certain income. So the driver's life is fundamentally transformed by the availability of Kareem in the market.
Do you guys have other numbers to share with us?
Yeah, like I won't share obviously very specific numbers, but I think the same situation. Whereas, when the drivers with Uber, when we first enter a market, a lot of these people, a lot of these drivers have never heard of Uber before, or even the concept of a booking through technology before, and so they might try it out. They might say, yeah, let me use Uber on my downtime. So that's literally what we tell them to do. Like, use Uber on your downtime. Whenever you don't have customers, come online and you'll see for yourself. What ends up happening very quickly, actually, is a lot of these times, a lot of drivers will say, look, I only use Uber now. Not only because it makes me more than enough money, but I have full control over my day. I choose when I come online and offline, and I can say I've done enough on Uber business for the day, or I can say I can work overtime and make extra money. So we've seen that a lot of these drivers start to, by themselves, decide to work exclusively with Uber because they're just doing so much on a per day and per month basis.
It's interesting for me. I did a little experiment when I was last in Dubai, and I was in a car, and I asked the driver if he works with Kareem or Uber. He said, I work with both.
Yeah.
Then I asked, is it just you? And he said, no, everybody that I know works for both. And then I asked him more questions about who he gets more business from and how it works, which I'm not going to share right now. Maybe we'll have a chat about that later. But I would encourage all of you to actually do this little experiment and see for yourselves.
Yeah, but if I can just comment on that, we don't demand exclusivity from drivers. So as a technology company, we give the driver the freedom to do whatever they want. So we literally give them the device and say, come online, and when you come online, you will take Uber customers. There's no doubt about it. So then, because of that, because we don't demand exclusivity, we don't tell them you have to work with Uber and only Uber, we don't restrict sort of where they earn their money. If they have school trips or private trips, by all means, take those. When you're free, use Uber. If Uber doesn't do it for you, but it usually does, you can use any other platform or any other service. You can still go out and try to pick up people at the malls, for example. So.
Okay, get ready for more questions from the audience. Can I see more questions from the audience? I'm going to ask another question here. Is this a market where the guy with the deepest pockets wins? I mean, we're talking about Uber is very well funded. You guys have raised some money from STC Ventures. I know, George, you have some funding. I don't know from where. But I mean, this is a big, expensive business. How are you going to, I mean, if we phrase it this way, how are you going to keep up with Uber's $18 billion valuation?
It's an interesting question, right? Because once you start running a business like this, you realize that, just shut off my phone. What you realize very quickly is to retain a customer, you need to offer a consistently reliable service. So let's say Uber can spend millions of dollars acquiring 10,000 customers, but if they cannot deliver a reliable service to these 10,000 customers, they will switch to Kareem. The switching cost is pretty low, right? You have two apps on your device, and if one doesn't get you a car, you actually open the other app and start working with them, right? So our focus in the way that we have developed the platform, both on the application side and on the operation side, is to make sure that we maximize reliability. For pre-scheduled bookings, 99.3% of the bookings, the driver is before the pickup time. He gets there before the pickup time. For now bookings, in 80% of the cases, in some markets, and it differs from different markets, the car is there within 10 minutes. So the key in this whole equation is to ensure a reliable service. And given the fact that we have built this technology from the ground up in this market, meaning that we have developed local maps for these markets, we have trained the drivers to operate the technology in the way that they're used to learning, makes us more reliable, I feel.
But I mean, just to push this a little bit further, can't Uber hire more people who are really qualified and spend more money on operations and on not just marketing? We're not talking just on marketing, right?
But think of it this way, right? If I was Travis, the Uber CEO, what's my first priority? It is San Francisco, right? My second priority is probably New York, Washington, D.C. Third priority is probably London, Paris. Fourth priority is India, China, Tokyo maybe. Fifth priority, right? You see where I'm going?
I do.
So that
147th priority.
that those billions of dollars are not coming here, right?
Okay.
If I could defend myself, sorry, Mudassir, but this just shows how little you know of our CEO. Because actually, the focus on the region has been extensive. So there's never been a situation where we've been told, slow down on marketing, slow down on reliability, slow down because we have to dedicate funds to London, Paris, New York. Actually, it's been the opposite. It's been like, show us what more you can do, how more you can tailor the product, whether it's on the customer side, and how you can make these drivers really excited to come on Uber. And I'll give just a small anecdote. So we launched in Dubai about a year, 15 months ago, I would say. Great, Dubai was our 42nd city, okay? A year later, now, we're in 230 cities around the world. So in 1 year, literally, in the first 2 to 3 years, it was 40 cities. 1 year after, it's 200 additional cities. That said, when we launched Riyadh, the CEO himself called us and really congratulated us on the Riyadh launch. And he said he was super excited about Riyadh. Anything we needed from him, you know, he's one email or one phone call away. He didn't do that with other cities, if I can be honest. But with Riyadh specifically, he was just super excited about it. And it goes to show, you know, the dedication that we have as a team to the cities, not only regionally, but internationally as well.
I appreciate that. And while I have to give you the advantage on money, I can't say that having the CEO actually here in Riyadh compares with a phone call. But I will turn it over to Mondo. I'm sorry, I'm not picking on you. I'm giving you some advantages.
I understand.
But I'll turn it over to Mondo.
But whether you call it a CEO or a general manager, there's nothing that I can't do in Riyadh from an operational perspective, whether it's spending money or acquiring customers.
Okay.
From that sense.
Okay, I'm actually the founder and the CEO. So, from that point of view, we realize we're much smaller than some of our competitors, but I think that's good. It allows us to focus a lot more on the needs of the customer and of the market itself. So we have to go out of our way to make sure we deliver the quality service. We can't afford to lose customers. We can't afford to have a sloppy service, basically. So from that point of view, we go personally to every market except Australia. We didn't go to Australia personally, but except Australia, we went to every single market ourselves, one of the founders, and we started off until the operation grew to a level where we're satisfied with the quality, and we're happy that the general manager can take over. So that's our approach, and I think it's worked out pretty well.
Okay. I'm being told that we have just a few more minutes left. Do we have more questions from the audience? The gentleman up front. And in the meanwhile, do we expect to see some consolidation in this space? Do you expect to buy or be bought by anyone in the next 3 to 5 years? Yes or no question. Mudassir.
No, we see
No.
plenty of opportunity. We're happy to keep growing.
Okay. Majid from Uber.
My mandate is to just make sure the city grows as fast and as big as possible. So that's all really I'm concerned about.
No,
Will you buy or be bought? Not either, but do you see either of those happening in 3 to 5 years?
not for us, no.
Okay.
The market is big enough for cash business.
Excellent. Interestingly, we had a session on food delivery, and the conversation there was quite different. The guys there very, very much expected consolidation in the market and acquisitions to take place in the next 3 to 5 years. So, okay, I'll turn the question to you, sir.
Question to the panelists. In the case that you provide a device to the driver, do you prevent them from installing other applications similar to your service in that device?
I think they've already answered that question. They said that they are not exclusive. So, no.
I think the comment might be a bit more technical. You can have multiple devices in the car, right? That's what most drivers have. So it's not multiple applications on one device. There are multiple devices in the car.
Great. I think we're about out of time. Gentlemen, thank you very much. And thank you for being good-natured with my somewhat aggressive questioning for the sake of our audience.